There is a strange moment in the life of almost every consumer. It arrives after the package has been opened, the screen has been upgraded, the new clothes have been worn once, and the excitement has already begun to disappear. The object is still there, but the feeling that justified buying it is gone. What remains is not satisfaction, but silence. For centuries, Japanese thinkers, merchants, craftsmen, and warrior households studied this silence. They understood that the danger of spending was not simply losing money. The deeper danger was allowing desire to make decisions faster than wisdom, and so a different path emerged. Not the rejection of all comfort, not poverty disguised as virtue, but the discipline of buying less, choosing carefully, preserving resources, and allowing time to transform small savings into lasting strength. This is why the journey toward wealth often begins with a surprising act. Not earning more, not investing more aggressively, but learning when to stop buying. During the Edo period, Japan experienced more than 2 centuries of stability. Cities expanded, trade networks developed, merchant families grew in influence, even though merchants occupied a complicated social position beneath warriors, farmers, and artisans in the official order. A merchant who displayed too much luxury could attract resentment, damage his reputation, or weaken the business that supported his household. Wealth was valuable, but visible excess could become dangerous. This created a culture in which many successful merchant houses learned to separate appearance from endurance. The purpose of profit was not merely consumption. Profit had to protect the family, maintain inventory, survive poor seasons, support future generations, and preserve trust. The merchant's home and the merchant's business were connected by one question: will this decision still appear wise years from now? Imagine an Edo shopkeeper at the end of a long day. The shutters are closed, oil lamps burn beside handwritten ledgers, coins are counted, debts are recorded, and tomorrow's obligations are measured against today's earnings. The ledger does more than track money. It creates distance between impulse and action. A desire feels urgent when it exists only in the mind. Once written beside rent, wages, supplies, family needs, and future risks, it becomes smaller. It must compete with reality. This is one reason accounting has always been psychological. A ledger does not simply show what happened. It reveals what a person values. Modern consumers rarely sit beside an oil lamp, but the principle has not changed. Every transaction is a vote for a certain kind of future. The problem is that digital spending has removed much of the friction that once made those votes visible. One tap, one saved card, one monthly payment small enough to ignore. The pain of paying has become faint, while the pleasure of acquiring remains immediate. Behavioral economics explains the imbalance. Human beings tend to value present rewards more strongly than future rewards. A purchase today feels concrete. Financial security 10 years from now feels distant and abstract. The future self becomes almost like a stranger. We spend in the present and send the bill to someone we have not yet become. Edo merchants could not eliminate this human weakness. They built systems around it. They recorded expenses. They maintained reserves. They protected working capital. They trained younger family members inside the business. And they understood that a household could appear prosperous while quietly becoming fragile. Wealth and consumption are not the same thing. Consumption is visible. Wealth is often hidden. A new car can be seen from the street. A diversified investment account cannot. Designer furniture can impress a visitor. A strong emergency reserve remains invisible. The modern economy rewards visible consumption because visible consumption encourages comparison. Comparison creates dissatisfaction. Dissatisfaction creates demand. A person does not need to hate what he owns. He only needs to see what someone else owns. The moment one purchase becomes normal, a more expensive version begins to feel necessary. Income rises, but peace does not. The house becomes larger, the payments become longer, and the lifestyle becomes harder to reduce. This is known as lifestyle inflation, but the Edo merchant would have recognized it immediately. When the household begins consuming every improvement in income, prosperity loses its roots. Japanese minimalism is often presented as an aesthetic: empty rooms, pale walls, carefully placed objects. Every object carries a cost beyond its price. It requires space, maintenance, attention, replacement, and eventually disposal. A cheap purchase can become expensive when repeated hundreds of times. The old idea of modanai expresses regret over waste and the misuse of something valuable. It is not merely about refusing to throw things away. It is about respecting the full value of resources. Money is one of those resources. So is time. So is attention. A purchase consumes all three. The disciplined buyer therefore asks a different question. Not, can I afford this today? But, what will this cost my future? That is opportunity cost. Every dollar spent cannot be saved, invested, used to reduce debt, or held as protection against uncertainty. One purchase rarely destroys a financial future. The pattern behind the purchase can. A monthly habit of unnecessary spending does not remain small. Over years, it becomes lost capital. And lost capital also loses the growth it might have earned. Compound growth rewards money, but it also rewards behavior. A person who saves only when inspired will struggle to build momentum. A person who creates a repeatable system gives time something to work with. The merchant families of Edo understood continuity. Their strength did not come from one dramatic decision. It came from many modest decisions repeated across seasons and generations. Protect the shop, preserve trust, avoid unnecessary display, keep reserves, reinvest carefully, teach the next generation. The modern equivalent is not complicated. Spend below your means. Maintain a financial buffer. Automate long-term contributions. Avoid debts used only to support appearances. Increase investing when income rises instead of allowing every raise to disappear into consumption. And wait before major purchases. Waiting is one of the most underestimated financial tools. A desire that survives 30 days may be real. A desire that disappears in 3 days was probably emotional weather. The pause creates what the old ledger once created: distance. That distance allows the rational mind to return. Samurai discipline also offers a useful parallel. A warrior was not trained only to act. He was trained not to act too early. The same is true with money. The impulse to buy, sell, upgrade, or imitate others often feels like action. But action without judgment is not strength. It is surrender to the moment. Investing psychology demands the same calm. Markets rise and fall. Headlines generate urgency. Friends boast about gains. Fear and envy begin competing for control. The undisciplined investor reacts to emotion and calls it strategy. The disciplined investor has principles established before the emotion arrives. This does not guarantee profit. Nothing can. But it reduces the chance that temporary feelings will destroy long-term plans. There are several modern mistakes that make wealth building especially difficult. The first is using consumption as identity. When objects become proof of success, spending becomes emotionally necessary. The second is confusing affordability with wisdom. A monthly payment may fit the budget while still weakening future flexibility. The third is treating every increase in income as permission to expand lifestyle. The fourth is saving what remains after spending instead of deciding what to preserve before spending begins. And the fifth is believing that small expenses do not matter. Small expenses are not dangerous because each one is large. They are dangerous because they are easy to repeat without reflection. The solution is not permanent deprivation. It is deliberate ownership. Choose fewer things, but choose them well. Use them longer. Repair what still has value. Keep a written record of spending. Create a waiting period for non-essential purchases. Separate money for security and long-term investing before lifestyle decisions are made. And review recurring expenses with the seriousness of a merchant reviewing his ledger. The goal is to remove what keeps the future weak. Over time, something subtle begins to happen. The person who stops chasing every new object becomes harder to manipulate. Advertising loses some of its power. Comparison becomes less painful. Income gains more purpose. Savings begin to create options. Investments begin to create distance from dependence. And financial peace stops being an abstract dream. It becomes the result of repeated decisions. This may be the most important lesson hidden inside the old merchant tradition. Wealth is not created only by what enters a household. It is also created by what the household refuses to let escape. The world will always offer another upgrade, another trend, another symbol of belonging. But every generation must decide whether money will be used to impress the present or strengthen the future. The Japanese path of restraint does not ask us to reject beauty, comfort, or enjoyment. It asks us to stop confusing ownership with freedom. Because the person who needs less is not necessarily living with less. He may be preserving more time, more independence, more resilience, and more possibility. And perhaps that is where wealth truly begins. Not in the moment we finally possess everything we want, but in the moment we understand why we no longer need to.